Hello friends, and welcome back to a very homemade holiday. Nothing says the holidays quite like sitting around and playing board games with friends and family, and that's why today I'm going to show you how to build your own set of board games that'll last for generations. So today we're throwing all the logs on the fire and cranking up the heat in here because this is a pretty advanced woodworking project. It involves a lot of tools and a lot of time, but I'm going to show you what's possible if you're willing to put in the time and the effort. So for this first project, we're going to make a hardwood 4-in-a-row game. So to get started, first thing we have to do is grab some rough lumber and mill it down so that it's ready to work with. I'm taking a couple pieces of walnut to the bandsaw, resawing it in half, bringing it over to the thickness planer, and then planing it down to the proper size. Next, I can glue up the panel so that it's ready to work with. Once it's all dried, I can sand it down so it's nice and smooth, and then cut it to size so that I can work with it on my CNC machine. So for this design, I have to cut a lot of equal spaced and equal sized holes. And there's no better way to do this than a CNC machine. So all I have to do is design what I need to cut out, put the piece of wood on the CNC machine, and it'll do the work for me. I also decided to add a Carhartt branding to this since this whole series is powered by my friends at Carhartt, so I can't thank them enough. And I thought it would be a nice touch to give this to them as a gift for making this series possible. From there, I have to rip a bunch of small strips of walnut to act as the dividers between each column. This took a little bit of trial and error to figure out what the proper size needed to be. But once I had it figured out, I could cut the opposite side so that I had two halves and then glue everything together. From there, I can move on to starting the base. I decided to use the CNC to cut and engrave the legs for the game as well. While the legs were cutting on the CNC, I moved on to how to attach the legs to the game board. I'm using some brass dowels to attach the legs so the game board can swivel and tip upside down so the game pieces can dump out. So I cut a couple small pieces of the brass rod on the bandsaw, sanded them down a little bit, drilled some holes into the side of the board, and glued them in place with some CA glue. I also built a small tray to connect the two legs to make the base one solid piece and also offer a place to catch the game pieces. From there, I could move on to finishing the whole game board. I added some black epoxy to fill in the CNC'd logos on the board, sanded everything down, and added several coats of semi-gloss spray polyurethane to finish it off. With the board complete, I moved on to making the game chips. I decided to make the chips out of some zebra wood like the jewelry box I previously made and milled and glued up a panel. Then I designed and cut the pieces on the CNC machine. Each chip has the Carhartt logo in it. For one half of the game pieces, I left it as the plain zebra wood, and for the other, I filled them with black epoxy so you can differentiate between the two teams. And once all of that's finished, I could assemble everything, and this project was complete. So that's it for this project. I realize that it's a pretty involved project and that not everybody has access to a CNC machine like I do, but it does make things easier. Could you do it without it? Sure. Could you make different versions of it without it? Probably. But I'm just showing you what's possible if you're willing to invest the time, the effort, and the money into the tools. So we're not quite done yet. Next, I'm going to show you how to tackle a 3D chessboard, and like most projects I've done, it involves milling some lumber down first. I'm milling some light colored maple and some dark colored walnut, and ripping it on the table saw to create 1¼ by 1¼ long strips. Next, I'll take it over to the chop saw and cut it into a ton of small pieces at 1/2 inch increments, with the longest piece being 4 inches and going down from there. Once I have a bunch of pieces cut, I start gluing them up. This project just involves a lot of cuts and a lot of glue, stepping up or down each piece by a 1/2 inch, with the king and queen being the tallest and everything else stepping down from there. So once I have the first row done, I can do the second row and then so on. Now the board should be 8 rows by 8 rows, but at this point I realized I made the board 8 rows by 10 rows, so I took it to the table saw and ripped 1 row off each side to keep it 8 by 8. From there, I cleaned it up with the sander and then could start on making a nice frame for it. Again, I went with zebra wood since I had it available and I wanted to stick with the wood combinations from this series. I measured and mitered each piece at 45 degrees, and to add a little more visual appeal to the frame, I cut each piece with a 20-degree bevel to finish it off. Then I could just glue up the frame to the board, sand everything down, and add a few coats of spray finish, and this project was complete. So I hope you guys enjoyed this series, and I hope it's given you some inspiration to knock out your own homemade gifts this holiday season. Regardless of your skill set and access to tools, there's no barriers to accessing your creativity, so you can always find a way to make a unique handmade gift this holiday season, and I encourage you to do so. And I want to say thank you for watching and following along. If you did like this video, please hit that like button, leave a comment down below and let me know. And also, be sure to follow me on my website at MrFixitDIY.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.